Looking Out by Sean Patrick. Looking back. God, the irony. I have to guess it was the knife that gave me away. Most people don't carry knives in the open without intent, and the madness in my eyes must have been apparent. I imagine there's a padded cell in my future, unless they've gotten far enough to simply put me in the ground. Part of me would prefer the ground, but beggars can't be choosers. When you mark days by cycles of sleep and you stop sleeping, it's hard to say how long it's been since this started. Perhaps it was a week ago that I burned my hand on the coffee. Flexing my fingers now, it feels sensitive but old. Sitting across my table from Josh, I had cursed at the barista from across the room. Josh laughed at me and gave me a napkin. What were you saying? I asked. I was saying that lid wasn't secure, Josh pointed. Well, screw me, right? I moaned while pressing the napkin against my inflamed hand. Did you secretly spill that all over to give yourself an excuse to avoid seeing Carla tonight? Josh challenged. I had winced a little from more than the pain in my hand. Of course not. If I had thought of it beforehand, I might have. There's no way of escaping her. No, there really isn't. Josh took another sip of his coffee and rubbed his eye. He must have rubbed his eye 6 times during that conversation, but this was the first time I really took note. He gouged his knuckle deep and twisted back and forth. You all right? I inquired. You're really getting in there. Yeah, I'm fine. As he pulled his hand away, I could see his eye had become bloodshot, and the surrounding flesh was red and irritated. Geez, you don't look okay. Allergies or something? I leaned in closer and thought I might have seen his heart beating through the veins. Maybe it was his heart. I don't know. I woke up this morning and my eye was just killing me. Maybe Jane changed detergents or something. I didn't sleep well either. I could see Josh was fighting the urge to rub his eye again, deciding instead to wrap both hands around his paper cup and focus on the dark, warm liquid within. How's that going after everything? I leaned back in my seat, settling in for a self-righteous speech, and made sure my lid was truly attached before attempting another drink. It's fine, Josh began. He paused. Working through it. She isn't talking to that guy anymore, and I've cut back on my time at work, so things are looking up. He wanted to say more, wanted to complain about his girlfriend's promiscuity yet again, diminish his own transgressions, and bemoan the lost money his absence from work caused. Alternatively, he drank from his coffee and rubbed his eye. Well, I'm glad you're making progress. Now you just need someone to take a look at your eye. Stop rubbing it! I swatted at his hand and the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. Living in the city, you forget the feeling of being watched. There is anonymity in numbers, after all, but I had suddenly been very conscious of eyes on me. That pressing awareness of knowing, absolutely knowing that you're being observed. I had slyly looked over my shoulder and saw a man in a suit gazing at me. As I had turned, I think I saw the barista spying on me as well. The funeral-ready man and I locked eyes for a moment before he finally broke off and returned to his paper. I wish that... well, it doesn't matter anymore. So, Josh managed through vigorous ocular fisting. I'll see you at my place tonight and we'll head over together. I thought you were driving, I complained, turning back. Nope, it's all you. That way, he reluctantly pulled his hand away to reveal his increasingly glowing eye. I can be an anchor, keeping you at the party because you wouldn't want to leave me behind. I might leave you behind, I proclaimed. You won't. Besides, do you really want me driving with eyes like this? I can see well enough, but I just can't stop rubbing the damn thing. He emphasized the point by returning to grinding his face with his fist. All right, fair point. I'll see you tonight. I had stood, hugged him, and walked off. I wish I had hugged him tighter. There was that feeling of being watched again as I left. I tried to ignore it as I started my car and drove away. The flower shop was only a few blocks up, but I didn't want to leave my car behind. I didn't want to come back. Hello there, I greeted the florist. Well, hello. How can I help you today? Her disingenuous smile was heartwarming. I need a nice bouquet. You've come to the right place. We have plenty of those. Was that hatred that flashed across her eyes? I need a bouquet that's nice, but not too nice. Just a pleasant gesture kind of bouquet. For someone special, but not too special? Annoyance was certainly playing across her eyes. My ex, I confessed. Oh, trying to get her back? No, I just need to show I care that she isn't dead without admitting that I kind of wish she was. I met her false smile with one of my own. Distress and distaste were certainly visible now. Oh, well, She moved to the rack of pre-made arrangements and pulled one free. This should do. A sparse collection of lilies, branches, and daisies wrapped in damp plastic. Yep, that seems about right. Thank you. She began to process the order, and as I handed her my money, I saw a shadow pass across her eye. Just her right eye. In the moment, I had felt uneasy, and the back of my neck had tingled, but I wasn't sure exactly why. With time, I realized I was uneasy because she wasn't standing near anything that could cast a shadow. No rogue vines or promotional signs or stray birds. Just her and her eyes. The feeling of being watched began to creep in again, but we were alone. It was just her watching me. "Here you go. I hope the message comes across for you," she proclaimed as she slid the fragile bundle across to me. I nodded and gave a light smile as I left the store. Before driving away, I sat in my car, hands gripping the wheel, and stared outward while looking at nothing. I wondered if I had imagined it, if I was growing paranoid. Maybe the coffee had been stronger than I thought, and the caffeine was kicking in harder than usual. Damn it all. Damn every last bit of it. The car engine revved to life, and the radio crooned a song I recognized by Rockwell and Michael Jackson about being watched, before I switched it off and drove home in silence. After a cleansing shower, I dressed to the eights. The night wasn't worth my best, secured my gift flowers, and arrived at Josh's apartment. It wasn't until the third series of knocks that he opened the door. "Hey man, ready to— Oh my gosh, are you alright?" My pleasantries had been derailed at the sight of his completely crimson eye. "Yeah, geez, what's wrong with you? Have you not looked in a mirror recently?" "I guess not." Josh wiped his hands across his face. "Did I get whatever it was?" "No, you most certainly did not. Come on!" I pushed my way into his apartment and led him to the bathroom. "Look at your eye!" I exclaimed. "Okay, it doesn't look great," Josh concluded. "If I played pool with that thing, it wouldn't be the cue ball. That's not what eyes should look like." Josh examined his eye a moment, then leaned back. "If this was a theme night, I could bust out an eye patch and just say yar a lot." "We need to take you to a doctor," I pleaded. "Look, I talked to Jane," he explained. "She did change the detergent. It is allergy season. There are plenty of reasons for my eye to be red. If it isn't cleared up by tomorrow, I'll see a doctor, but we have places we have to be tonight." "We don't have to be there that bad," I implored. "I think we do. You could lose your eye, man. Seriously, why is this stupid party so important?" "I think that Jane and I need this. As a kind of return to normal." Josh looked away. "That we can still get together with friends and have a good time and be us. We haven't really been us in a long time." I sighed and glimpsed the toothbrush holder on the sink. It had 2 holes and only held 1 brush. "All right," I muttered. "Let's go to this stupid party." We arrived in record time, and before long the drinks were flowing smoothly, the music was playing loudly, and the partygoers' laughs were numerous. Carla took the flowers graciously and smiled, almost like she used to. Her hug was brief, but I caught a whiff of her vanilla shampoo and felt my chest tighten. "I hope you're finally happy," I declared with as much sincerity as I could muster. "Thank you. I hope you're doing well too," she retorted with a voice as rich as honey. She was so beautiful, and that might be the thing I hate most about her, that unending beauty that rips right into my memories and my lost hopes of the future. "I have to go play host," she reported. "Of course, please, go entertain." She held my hand for a brief moment and said, "I'm glad you came," before she wandered off. The next thing my hand held was a drink, then another. I remember thinking someone might be watching me, but I was beyond caring. Then I saw Josh talking with Jane in a corner. She smiled and walked away before he started rubbing his eye. We should have gone to see a doctor. Josh rushed off down a hall, holding his face, and I followed. He was leaning over a bathroom sink when I found him. "What's wrong?" I inquired. "You might have been right," Josh muttered, pulling at his face to inspect the reflection of his discolored eye. Laughing, I knocked against Josh's head with a fist and taunted, "I'm always—" His hands were around my throat before I could gasp. His mouth wrenched in an awful snarl, and his eyes were wild. Desperately, I clutched at his wrists and gurgled in surprise. Realization flickered, and Josh pulled away. I coughed and gasped for air as Josh leaned against the wall. I'm so sorry. I don't know what that was. I don't... You just hit my face and I reacted. I'm sorry. Are you all right? I cursed repeatedly before finally standing upright. I know you're going through a tough time, but that is no excuse. It wasn't me. I would never do that. I don't know what that was, Josh stammered. Really? It sure felt like your hands around my throat. It looked a lot like you, too. I coughed again and rubbed my neck. I don't know. I don't feel right. I haven't had much to drink, but my head is pounding. He leaned back towards the mirror and pulled at his face, twisting and turning to examine it further. Damn it. Let me take a look, I demanded. Reluctantly, he turned and looked at me. The hairs on my neck fluttered. Slowly, I put my hands to his head. Don't attack me this time. Look up. His eyes rolled and the crimson webbing clearly throbbed. Jeez. Yeah, I'm sure your head is pounding. I can see it. Damn, I can feel it. There was undoubtedly a pulse beating against my hand. Look to the side. As his eyes shifted, damn it, I felt it. Like a baby testing the limits of its confines, pressing against the walls of its host, it was there. I recoiled and cursed again. What? What is it? There's something there, was all I could manage. What was it? I don't know. There's something. I could barely manage to articulate it. There's something in your head. What? Josh looked confused and angry. I grabbed his hand and held it to his face. Okay, now look around. He swiveled his eyes and, for a moment, there was no change. Then he gasped and I felt the motion through his hand. What? What was that? What? I don't know! Something black stretched across the crimson sea, and Josh howled in pain. I stepped back just in time for him to strike out at me. He swung again, and I dodged. Through clenched teeth, he managed, Get it out! He struck me clean across the jaw, and I spun. His fist smashed through the drywall as I stepped to the side, hitting me with a right hook. Josh groaned and slipped to the floor. Cut it out! Cut it out! He growled, clenching his entire head. Rushing to the kitchen, I grabbed an ivory-handled steak knife. I felt the familiar sensation of being observed as I hustled down the hall, past partygoers to the punishing beat of music. Re-entering the room, I saw Josh standing in the shower, contorted like a marionette with half his strings cut. His face was placid as his gaze fell upon me. I locked the door behind me. Hey, buddy. How you feeling? I held the knife low and stepped casually towards my friend. I'm fine. Why? He said pleasantly. Are you sure? I asked cordially. Yeah. Are you? He spotted the knife, lurched forward, and wrenched it from my grasp before I could react. With lightning speed, he slashed forward wildly as I retreated. Josh, stop! Please! I begged. I'll never forget his face, caught in an expression of rage and confusion as he swung the blade. Then it contorted like he was about to sneeze before he plunged the knife into his skull, twisted it, and ripped it back out. My friend's eyeball was torn and clinging to the skewer. The momentum of his arm coming back down toppled him, and he fell to the floor as blood oozed out of his socket. I froze. What could I do? My best friend had just ripped his own eye out with a knife I brought him. I was about to breathe again when the purple, tendril-laden slug climbed from the shredded hole my friend used to see through. Its tentacles slapped down his body, and I could hear what I can only comprehend as grumbling. If the sound of sizzling and popping bacon could be angry, it would use the voice of this creature. It wasn't until the throbbing monstrosity began gripping my shoe that I came to. I whipped my leg out and tried to kick it off, but it held firm as its bulbous body swung back and forth. I tried to scrape it against the wall, but it shimmied up my leg. I snatched the knife from Josh's limp hand, but before I could move to slice the creature, I slipped on my friend's blood and stumbled to the floor. No longer needing to fight gravity, the thing whipped up my chest, and I felt its slimy limbs trying to grip my cheeks. I managed to grab the stalk of the outsider and yank it back. Its body was covered in small, spiny antennae, and I could feel the thrum of blood and muscles under its slick flesh. Tentacles wrapped around my wrist, and I could hear squealing and hissing. Then someone was slamming on the door. Maybe someone had finally heard all the commotion. Maybe something else. The creature was crushing my wrist with its dark tendrils trying to dislodge itself. Just as it had almost slipped free, I slashed it with the knife my friend had killed himself with. It let out a guttural, oscillating screech, the likes of which I had never heard before. I stabbed it. Then I stabbed it again. The monstrosity lashed out as the pounding of the door became more urgent. I kicked open the toilet and began cutting at the most exposed end of the foul creature. Red and purple blood poured down my hand and trickled into the clear water below, coiling and spreading out like oil. I cut and cut as the wood of the door splintered, the otherworldly shrieking quieted, and the slimy tentacles loosened as a large chunk of the creature fell into the toilet with a soft plop. I scraped at the rest of the gooey mass and dropped it in the rapidly shifting water. With admirable determination, the limbs of the purple beast reached for the edge of the porcelain bowl. Quickly I pressed the flusher and stabbed at the writhing horror as the bloody water swirled and receded. While the water began to rise again, I saw two black, veiny tentacles stretching from the curved hole. Slicing them with my knife, they lifted up and bobbed at the rising water. I flushed again and heard the door finally submit to whoever was battering away at it. Before they could step in, I rammed past and sprinted for the exit. I knew I was being watched by everyone I made it by, but couldn't tell how many were looking at me and how many were seeing me with eyes that didn't belong to them. Rounding the corner and throwing the front door open, I glimpsed my lost love one final time. She looked bewildered, stunned, lost. I tried to throw her a look of apology as I leapt through the opening and ran to my car. I had warned Josh I might leave him behind. I didn't want to. I'm sure he didn't want to have a terrifying abomination from places unknown gazing out from behind his eye and wrapping around his brain, either. We all make adjustments. I know they'll think I killed him. There's no reason not to. I drove as far as I could before my pocket money for gas ran out. I ditched my car where it died and slid into foreign alleyways, trying to stay as hidden as possible now, seeking anonymity among the other lost and destitute. I can feel them watching me sometimes. Occasionally, I can feel others watching me too. I can only watch my own back. Some days are harder than others. I won't be able to see them coming, but I take solace knowing I won't be much use to them, since the last thing I saw was the tip of a makeshift blade behind a dumpster one cold, overcast day.